You know that moment when you're in the passenger seat looking out the window, and your mind has already read 5 signs, 2 billboards, and the name of a street that wasn't even your destination? You didn't try to do it. It just happened. Your eye went captured, processed and returned, as if nothing had happened. This isn't distraction. It's the opposite. It's a reading system that your body developed over years of living between 2 world formats: what you read on paper and what you scanned on a screen. Your eye learned to capture information on any surface, at any speed, because it grew up trained in both environments simultaneously. There's a silent superpower in that. While many people need to focus to read, you read without even realizing you're reading. Your brain has turned reading into a reflex, fast, automatic, and constant. It's not agitation. It's an antenna that never switches off, always collecting, always processing. Even when you think you're just looking out the window, your body learned to process 2 languages before you understood what translation was. Perhaps you remember a time when words in another language appeared in songs, movies, product packaging, and you simply absorbed them without a dictionary, without classes, without conscious effort. Your body stored them. Your mind connected them. And one day, you realized you understood things you had never formally studied. This process happens because you grew up in a period when 2 languages coexisted in the same space. The Portuguese is home and school, and the English is screens, games, music, and dubbed films that sometimes came with subtitles. Your brain didn't learn to translate. It learned to inhabit both sides at the same time, like someone who lives in a house with 2 bedrooms and feels at home in both. The superpower that resides there is fluidity. Not grammatical perfection, but the ability to move between languages without freezing, without needing to stop and think about which word to use. Your body already knows. It has already chosen. It has already answered before your conscious mind finishes formulating the sentence. That is rare, and it's yours. In the middle of a queue, your mind has already solved 3 problems that haven't even happened yet. You're waiting, the line isn't moving. And while everyone around you seems to just wait, your mind has already gone home, sorted out dinner, remembered an email you need to answer, calculated if you'll have time to stop at the market, and returned all in less than 2 minutes. On the outside, you're standing still. On the inside, you never stop. This has to do with a brain that was trained from an early age not to waste processing time. You grew up in a world that demanded patience, waiting for pages to load, waiting for movies to download, waiting your turn in line for video games, but which also began to offer speed. Your brain learned to use both modes, active waiting and accelerated processing. And today, it doesn't know how to just stand still. The superpower behind this is anticipation. You're rarely caught off guard because your mind has already simulated scenarios before they happen. You solve problems that others haven't even seen yet. You plan exits before the situation gets complicated. This might seem like anxiety to an outsider, but inside, it's an engine that works to protect you, prepare you, and keep you 1 step ahead. If you have noticed this way of reacting in yourself or someone close to you, right, that sounds like me. This helps this video reach more people who think and feel similarly. You can navigate on paper and on screen with equal ease, while others get stuck on one or the other. Some people jot everything down on their phones and get lost when they need to write by hand. Some people only trust notebooks and freeze when they need to organize something in an app. And then there's you who moves between the 2 without ceremony. You grab paper when you need to think. You open the screen when you need to execute. No drama, no rigid preference, just what works best at that moment. This happens because you weren't shaped by a single format. You did your homework in a notebook and researched on Alta Vista. You wrote down recipes in your planner and saved passwords in Windows Notepad. Your brain didn't create a hierarchy between the 2. Formats it, learn that each has its time, its use, its strength, and this neutrality has become a skill that few recognize as such. The superpower here is silent adaptability. You don't need the world to be a certain way to function well in it. You adjust without complaining, without resisting, without needing an adjustment period, while others wait for ideal conditions. You've already begun on paper, on a screen, on a napkin, whatever you have. Because what matters to you has never been the medium. It's always been what's being built on it. When the internet goes down, your body doesn't panic. It remembers how to wait. The internet goes down, the signal disappears. And while people around you become visibly agitated, checking their phones every 2 seconds, you breathe, look around, and from somewhere inside you emerges a calmness you didn't even expect. It's not indifference, it's memory. Your body has experienced this before and knows that the world doesn't stop when the connection drops. You grew up in a time when waiting was part of the process. Waiting for the modem to connect, waiting for the file to download overnight, waiting for a friend to bring the game CD because there was no way to send it online. This waiting wasn't suffering, it was the natural rhythm of things. And your nervous system stored this as a reference point, as a point of equilibrium that still exists within you, even if you rarely need to access it. The superpower that resides there is tolerance for frustration. When something fails, when the plan changes, when technology lets you down, you don't fall apart. You almost automatically seek plan B without needing external validation to reorganize yourself. Your body has learned that interruption is not the end. It's just a pause. And that, after the pause, life goes on often better than before. You change your tone of voice, posture, and even breathing rhythm depending on the language you are using. Perhaps you've never consciously noticed it, but there's a good chance that when you switch languages, something in your body changes along with it. Your voice becomes slightly different. Your shoulders relax or straighten. The pace of your speech speeds up or slows down. It's not performance. It's not imitation. It's your body entering a different mode, like changing clothes, depending on where you're going. This happens because language isn't just words. It's context. It's emotion, it's affective memory. You've associated each language with different experiences. One came with childhood, family, the smell of home. Another came with screens, music, movie characters, a sense of a larger world. When you access one of them, you also access everything you've built around it. The body feels this before the mind names it. The hidden superpower here is contextual intelligence. You read the environment and adjust almost instinctively, not just in language, but in tone, posture, and the energy you put into the conversation. This makes you someone who truly communicates, not just someone who talks. You don't just exchange words with people. You enter their world, and this silently opens doors that many people don't even realize exist. In meetings or conversations, you process what was said and what was left unsaid simultaneously. Someone says one thing, but something inside you senses that the real message was something else. It wasn't the word, it was the pause before it. It wasn't what the person said it was, the way they looked away while speaking. You hear the words, but you also hear the silence surrounding them, and almost always, the silence matters more. You learn to read between the lines before you even knew it had a name. This dual processing stems from a generation that learned to consume content in layers. You watched a movie and absorbed the soundtrack, the framing, the subtext of the scene, not because someone taught you, but because you grew up in an environment where information came in multiple formats at the same time. Your brain developed the habit of never processing just the surface. It always goes one level down, automatically, effortlessly. The superpower that resides here is profound human reading. You perceive when someone is okay before that person can verbalize that they are not. You feel the tension in a room before it turns into conflict. You understand what is being asked, even when the request hasn't been explicitly stated. This may seem like intuition, and in a way it is, but it's an intuition built, trained, honed by years of silent observation of a world that is always spoken in more than one language. At the same time, your mind stores memories in different layers, some in pixels, others in the smell of paper and ink. Some of your memories arrive in high-definition image like a mental print, sharp, illuminated, almost like a scene from a TV series. And others arrive with texture, the smell of an old textbook, the feel of a pencil on graph paper, the sound of a page turning on a quiet afternoon. You didn't choose to store them this way. Your brain simply archived each phase of your life in the format that existed at that moment. This creates something very particular in the way you remember things. You don't have a single memory system you have to. Working together, complementing each other, one memory might begin as an image and end as a sensation. Another might begin as a smell and suddenly bring back an entire scene, as if you had opened a file that had been compressed inside you for years, waiting for the right moment to appear. The superpower that resides in this layer is the emotional richness of memory. You don't just remember events, you relive atmospheres. You can reconnect with older versions of yourself with a depth that few people achieve. And this ability to access the past with so many different senses gives you something very valuable because those who know how to revisit their own layers can understand the layers of others with much greater care. If this explanation has made anything clearer about your personality, please comment. Now I understand better. Your participation strengthens this community of self. You feel discomfort when something is either too analog or too digital. Your brain seeks a balance between the two worlds. There are days when you pick up your phone, open 10 tabs, reply to messages, check notifications, watch half a video and suddenly feel a tiredness that isn't physical. It's as if something inside you is asking for silence, paper, a pen, a cup of coffee, and nothing flashing in front of you. And there are other days when you try to do everything in a notebook, on paper, analogically, and you feel like you're moving too slowly, as if the world is sped up and you've been left behind. This discomfort at the extremes isn't instability, it's calibration. Your brain was formed at a point of equilibrium between two worlds, and it knows in a visceral, bodily way when that equilibrium has been broken. When everything is too digital, it misses the depth of the analog. When everything is too slow and physical, it misses the agility of the screen. You're not indecisive. You're a system that functions best when both sides are present. The superpower that resides here is a sense of inner balance. You have an emotional compass that warns you when something is excessive, not just in technology, but in life. When a relationship is too intense, when work is consuming too much space, when rest is turning into an escape, your body has learned to sense extremes before they cause harm. And this silent radar, which few develop, is what keeps you whole in situations that would break someone who hasn't learned to listen to their own internal calibration. His greatest superpower is living in constant translation of language, of era, and of linguistics, and still understanding everything. You are constantly translating, not just words but eras, formats, generations, ways of thinking. You can talk to someone older about a world that no longer exists, and 5 minutes later perfectly understand someone younger's reference to something you've never experienced. You move between these universes with a naturalness that seems simple on the outside, but eternally requires a processing that very few people can do effortlessly. This capacity for constant translation was built over years of living on the border. You didn't entirely belong to the world of radio and encyclopedias, but you weren't born a native of the world of streaming and artificial intelligence either. You grew up in a middle land. The middle taught you to speak both languages, to respect both time periods, to see the value on both sides. This created in you a mental flexibility that goes far beyond technology. It's a way of being in the world. And perhaps that's the most profound superpower of all, not speed. Not layered memory, not silently reading between the lines, but the ability to understand without needing the world explained to you in your own way, to adapt without losing who you are, to translate without getting lost in the translation. You carry two worlds within you, and instead of splitting in two, you've integrated them. That's not confusion. It never was. That's you, whole, functioning exactly as you should. Throughout this video, we observed together 10 behaviors that appear in people who grew up on that silent border between analog and digital. 10 ways of being that may seem ordinary on the outside, but which inside carry a richness that rarely receives the recognition it deserves. You are not a generation lost between two worlds. You are a generation that has learned to inhabit both, and this has given you emotional, cognitive, and relational tools that are increasingly rare and increasingly necessary. It's not confusion you carry, it's complexity. And complexity, when understood carefully, always reveals something extraordinary. Have you ever noticed this type of behavior in yourself or someone you care about? Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes, just reading similar stories makes us feel much less alone. If you enjoy content that reveals the hidden superpowers in your personality, subscribe to the channel. Here we look at common daily habits with a calmer, deeper, and more human perspective.